while it's a welcome rally, I would still say that it's not a rally which looks like would be durable in nature. I think India will underperform. We've been underperforming because of local factors, and I think now global factors are just going to add more, more fuel to the fact that why we should underperform. And I'll tell you why there is a case for FI selling to continue, and why you're unlikely to get a lot of global flows back. If you look at the combination of the strength in the dollar index and where interest rates are moving, there are two things which normally determine the flows. One, valuations, where India is not great. Second is where the currency is. The dollar will move from strength to strength because of the change of regime there and what markets would like to position. And C is the fact that yields have gone higher. And typically when yields are going higher and when currency is moving higher and when valuations are not attractive, emerging markets, they don't tend to get a lot of flows. The general assumption was that Fed will do multiple rate cuts, and those multiple rate cuts will have an impact on the dollar, and that in a sense again will have an impact on how the currency market would move, and then flows will come back to emerging markets. That whole thesis gets challenged. And in the near term, there is a serious case for emerging markets now to underperform global markets, and I think India will be no different. So while in Nifty terminology, let's look at it, you had a respectable close. 24,000 got defended, but US markets may be marching towards new high. I don't think Indian markets have the strength or the liquidity support or the momentum that we will go to a new all-time high. The best case scenario is that we maintain the recent lows and just stay in and around where we are. It's only time will tell that whether we are able to maintain those lows, but I'm not very excited about the market setup in India just because Wall Street is celebrating a Trump victory. That may not translate into a lot of green on the screen for us.
Yeah, and a large part of it seems to have played out just yesterday itself. But just analyzing what the businesses are going to be like and how the Indian economy is going to be, closely linked with Trump at the helm now, Nomura is saying that India does stand to be the biggest beneficiary. And then, of course, comes, economies or countries like Malaysia, Japan, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, etc. Also, if you talk about Indian companies, they do have extremely high exposure in the US as well, largely IT, but other than IT as well. There is, of course, emphasis, there's persistent systems, wherein a large 70 to 80% of their sales, has exposure to the US region, LTI Mindtree, of course. But there is also, Nikunj, a Newland Pharma, there is a Dr. Reddy's as well, there's Natco Pharma, and of course Syngene too. So largely tech and pharma is which stands to be most sensitive, I guess.
See, let's look at data, and this is pure data, and I'm using the Citi report here. India's export to US under the Biden administration, they've grown at 9%. India's imports from US, they've grown at about 4%, actually less than 4%, which means the trade gap between India and US is actually increasing, and it has gone higher, largely because of the service exports what we have. The big picture is that tariffs will come, and tariffs will come for everybody. But will tariffs be higher for China than India? I think the answer to that is a well yes. If that is the case, then on the margin, India would benefit. I doubt that any changes would happen to the IT services sector because, while there could be some tinkering in H1B visa and, that whole trend will continue, but that's not going to be a death knell for Indian IT companies because, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, we've seen this whole IT services debate which just comes and goes, but, ultimately US economy needs IT contracts to be outsourced. I don't think a change will happen. Yes, you will keep on hearing periodical noises on H1B visa, which is what happens every time. Democrats have done that, Republicans have done that, Trump did that, Biden did that, and again Trump will do that. So I don't think anything changes there. The challenge is that what happens to the sectors where suddenly the export has started coming up. Some cars, clean energy, green energy, pharmaceuticals, the bulk drugs, and then also chemicals. These are the categories where you need to really understand that, how the tariff move would move. But on the margin, tariffs are coming. I think India would benefit. low-cost manufacturing, which up until now was dominated by China. I sincerely feel that a lot of that low-cost manufacturing will start moving to India. See, just by putting tariff does not mean that you can start an industry. No, by putting tariff, what can you do? You can say, okay, I will make the cost of landing higher. But if your cost of landing is still lower than what your cost of manufacturing in the local country is, then you can put as much tariffs as you want, doesn't matter. You ultimately will have to, you still have to punch. In that case, I think that more tariffs are coming for China, which actually could benefit some specific companies where India may just gain because of tariff. You know, you have to understand that which way trends are moving. The trend is that India and US are in a very strong relationship, which is very mutual, respectable and very mutual. That is not true when it comes to US and China relationships right now. So I think on the margin, tariffs are coming, but mild for India, more for China.